Back to you.
Rich Edson, our next guest, says that the Senate Democrats have come up with a massive bill that only got the necessary 60 votes because of all the spending add-ons slipped in the last minute.
And Republican Senator and ranking member of the Budget Committee, Gregg, he's vowing to do all he can to stop it. Welcome, sir. So you're vowing to do all you can to stop it. What really bothers you about the bill?
Well, first, it's the largest expansion of government that I've ever seen, $2.3 trillion. And that's going to be a government that's passed on to our children. They probably can't support that size of government. You know, we're facing massive deficits, massive debt, and this bill in the end will also add to the debt and deficits, in my opinion. And as a result, will make it, will reduce the quality of life for our children in the sense that their standard of living will be reduced as they try to support this huge government that's being put on top of them. Secondly, the Medicare reductions in here are inappropriately used. There's $500 billion of Medicare cuts in the first 10 years, $3 trillion over the first 20 years, and they're used to create a new entitlement program. That makes very little sense to me. If you're going to make those types of reductions in Medicare, they should be used to make Medicare more solvent by reducing the debt rather than creating this brand new entitlement, which we know will probably also add to the insolvency of our country. And thirdly, the increases on premiums is going to be significant, especially for small business. And we know that small business is a place where jobs are created, and we know that if you put more costs on them, it's harder for them to create jobs.
Senator Gregg, we had in the last hour Dr. Cecil Wilson, who is the president-elect of the American Medical Association, and I flat out asked him, how can this actually bend the cost curve properly? He said it absolutely does. He absolutely feels that this will, and he also believes that doctors' reimbursements will increase under this. So how can he, as a doctor, probably vetting quite a bit of the bill, be so totally wrong?
Well, first off, the CBO has said that it does not bend the cost curve down. It bends it up by $235 billion over the first 10 years. That's how much the costs go up for national health care. Secondly, the doctors were sort of bought into this, or at least their national organization was, with the representation that they would have a doctor fix, which costs another $250 billion, or almost a quarter of a trillion dollars, separate from this bill. In other words, it's not in this bill. Why isn't it in this bill? Because this bill would have been so out of kilter had that been put in. It wouldn't have survived scrutiny. And so they've been basically told, well, down the road here sometime in February, we, the Congress, the Democratic Congress, will correct the doctor's fix by adding that to the deficit. That's a terrible thing to do, I think. It's a very inappropriate approach, and I can understand why the doctors may have bought in for that reason, but it's certainly not good policy.
Senator, are the Republicans going to fight this through and try to drag it out even beyond Christmas Eve?
I don't think that's possible, at least in the Senate. The clock under the procedures that run here will mean that the final vote will occur around 7 o'clock on Christmas Eve. There's no capacity to go past that time. However, it still has to go back to the House, and I presume there'll be some discussion before it passes the House again.
Senator, you also said earlier that the CBO says that this won't bend the cost curve, making things less expensive, but the CBO also says that it will cut the deficit by, I believe, around $130 billion. So can they be wrong on one issue and correct on another? You're saying that you agree with them on not bending the cost curve.
No, the CBO is actually correct under their scoring, which they were given a certain set of facts. The facts are these. Takes the tax increase and take the spending cuts to Medicare for 10 years. Take the spending for the new programs in this bill, but for only 5 years in the 10-year period. In other words, they match 10 years of income and spending cuts against 5 to 6 years of actual new program. That's how they're able to make it look like it's fiscally responsible. Well, of course, when you fully phase in this, and you end up with a massive increase in the size of the government, $2.3 trillion, you'll have to have such dramatic cuts in Medicare that I don't think the Congress will do them, to be quite honest with you. And I believe you'll end up with very significant deficits in the out years. But the numbers, the proposal the CBO was given, they didn't have any other way to score it. When you're given 10 years of spending cuts and 10 years of tax increases and match them against 5 to 6 years of actual new program, you're obviously going to come up with a positive.
Senator Gregg, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. And fair and balanced.